Well, congratulations on this first match that you play here at Madrid Open. So we want to know, how was you feeling?
No, I feel really great. I love Madrid. It's an amazing tournament. Sí, cada vez que vengo aquí siento muy cómoda, siento en casa.
Madrid came to watch tennis. What it got instead was a full-on identity reveal that nobody saw coming. 1 second, Eala is grinding through a clay court battle. The next, she opens her mouth after the match and out flows fluent, confident Spanish, not broken phrases, not rehearsed lines, but real, natural Spanish. The crowd did not just applaud, they froze first. Then they switched sides emotionally in about 4 seconds flat. Now here is what nobody is asking but everybody should be: how does a player lose a match and still walk out of that stadium having won something bigger? And was any of this planned? Or did Madrid just get completely ambushed by a 19-year-old with 3 languages and 0 hesitation?
You showed off your skills on the clay court, but then right after the match, you showed off your Spanish
My Spanish skills.
Can you speak Spanish? Have you been working on that?
Oh, well, yeah, I've lived in Spain for a really long time already. And I did study Spanish in school there, so...
What makes the whole thing even harder to process is that nothing happening during the match itself gave any hint about what was coming afterward. On paper, Eala stepping onto the clay against Elise Mertens at the Madrid Open looked like a pretty clean narrative. Experienced veteran manages the pace, controls the rallies, handles business, and a young player gains some valuable match experience and walks away with lessons. That was the expected story. But the expected story is never the one worth watching. Earlier in the year, Mertens had already been asked about facing Eala in Australia, and her answer was diplomatic but telling. She respected the crowd energy around Eala, stayed focused on herself, and did what experienced players do. She did not get distracted. She just competed. And that is exactly what made the Madrid matchup so much more compelling than the scoreline suggests.
Alexandra Eala, the teenager from the Philippines, who didn't have to play today.
You're calling it.
She's winning the tournament.
Eala?
Yep.
Oh,
Wow. Why do you say that?
Mic drop from Anacomb.
I don't have to elaborate.
How is she going to beat Iga?
No, I think, look, it's been so much fun to watch her play. I love the fact that she's been able to take power and use it against.
Here is the part that should genuinely stop you. A loss turned into a breakthrough. Not on the scoreboard, not in the stats, but in the moment that followed the final point, the kind of moment that quietly rewrites how an audience sees a player forever. Before any of that happened, though, the match itself was doing something quietly remarkable. Eala was not playing scared. She was not sitting back and hoping for errors. She was going for it, stepping inside the baseline, taking early balls, redirecting pace, and choosing sharp angles even when the safer option was sitting right there waiting for her. That takes a specific kind of confidence that cannot be faked, especially against a player like Mertens who has made an entire career out of punishing players who get impatient. Mertens is not the kind of opponent who lets matches spiral into chaos. She absorbs. She extends. She makes every rally just one shot longer than you want it to be, and then she waits for you to crack. That is her game. And it works because most players eventually do crack. What made Eala different in this match was not that she avoided the pressure, she felt all of it, but that she kept making active decisions under it instead of retreating into something passive and safe. She kept swinging. She kept choosing. And yes, some of those choices produced errors. But they also produced moments where the crowd leaned forward, which is something a perfectly safe, conservative performance almost never does. Think about that for a second. She was the one who lost the match. She was the visitor on a Spanish clay court, and yet the crowd was completely with her by the end of it. How does that happen? It happens when the person on court is doing something that feels real, something that makes you feel like you are watching someone who actually cares about every single point, rather than someone who is going through the motions of a professional obligation. Eala plays like every point matters, and that energy is contagious in a stadium. But here is where things get genuinely interesting, because the match was only the setup for the real moment. After the final point was played, after Mertens closed it out with the kind of precision and experience she is known for, Eala walked to the microphone for what should have been a routine post-match acknowledgement. You know the format: brief thanks in English, polite smile, quick exit. That is the template. That is what almost every player does because it is safe and efficient and nobody expects anything else. Eala did not follow the template. She started speaking in Spanish. Not with the cautious halting delivery of someone attempting a few practiced phrases for the cameras. She spoke with fluency, with confidence, and with a naturalness that made the whole crowd stop and recalibrate. Because when someone speaks your language like they actually live in it, you feel that differently than when someone reads it off a script. The crowd felt it. The reaction was immediate, not just polite applause, but a genuine warmth, a kind of collective recognition that something real had just happened in front of them. And then she kept going, moving into English, touching on her Filipino roots, weaving between her worlds without making it feel like a performance. That is the key detail. It did not feel performed. It felt like exactly who she is, a young woman who has spent years traveling, learning, competing, and absorbing the world around her, and who carries all of that with her onto the court and then off it when the match is done. Now stop and think about the contrast being created here. She just lost. She is standing in front of a crowd that watched her get beaten by a more experienced, more seasoned opponent. That is the moment where most people default to disappointment or deflection. Instead, she showed composure that felt almost counterintuitive to the situation. No excuses. No searching for something to blame. Just an honest acknowledgement of the challenge, a genuine connection with the audience, and an exit that left people feeling like they had discovered something rather than simply witnessed a result. That is a very specific kind of maturity, and it is not something you can manufacture on command. Her post-match demeanor revealed something that the match itself had been hinting at the whole time, that she is not approaching these competitions looking for immediate validation. She is approaching them as part of a longer process, one where every match teaches something and every loss is data rather than damage. She said it herself after a different match, talking about how playing top 10 opponents actually feels liberating because she goes in as an underdog with nothing to lose and everything to swing at. That mindset produces a specific kind of freedom, and when freedom combines with genuine skill, you get the kind of tennis that makes stadiums stop scrolling their phones and actually watch. The technical assessment of where she is right now is honest. There are things to sharpen. Managing longer rallies against defensive specialists who thrive on patience and controlled discomfort is a challenge she will need to solve with greater consistency. Choosing when to attack and when to reset under sustained pressure is a skill that develops slowly and does not arrive fully formed, no matter how talented the player. These are real gaps, but the foundation underneath those gaps is already strong. Her movement, her ability to transition from defense to offense within a single point, her willingness to hunt for winners even in difficult positions, these are things that experienced coaches see and get genuinely excited about. At the time of Madrid, she was ranked 44th in the world, 15 wins, 10 losses on the season. Her best result had been a quarterfinal run in Dubai, and her best win had come against a top 4 player in Indian Wells. Her clay season had been inconsistent, with losses to Ostapenko and Fernandez both stinging in different ways. But inconsistency at this stage of a career is not a warning sign, it is just the reality of a player who is still finding where her ceiling is. Every loss against an experienced opponent is a file getting added to a mental library that she will draw from later, sometimes years later, when a similar situation appears and she already knows what to do. What cannot be coached, however, is the composure she displayed in Madrid. The mental side of professional tennis is brutally demanding in ways that statistics do not capture. The pressure to perform, to justify rankings, to meet expectations that multiply as visibility grows, all of that weighs on players in ways that often do not show up until a crucial moment in a tight match. Eala's behavior throughout the Madrid tournament, during the match and after it, suggests that she has either developed or was born with a psychological framework that does not collapse under that weight. She competes, she learns, she connects, and then she moves forward. That cycle, repeated consistently, is what sustained careers are built on. The fans who have followed her know this already. The people who traveled to watch her play at the US Open, who debated whether to come back for another round, who ultimately made the decision because they felt something genuine every time she stepped on court, they have been watching this pattern develop for a while. She has what one observer described as a voice and a platform that goes beyond the sport itself, touching fashion, culture, and global identity in a way that few athletes manage at any age, let alone at 19. That reach is not accidental. It comes from who she actually is, a Filipino player who grew up competing internationally, who learned Spanish across 8 years of traveling the circuit, who speaks multiple languages because she has lived across multiple worlds simultaneously. That kind of background creates someone who can connect with an audience in Madrid or Manila or Melbourne, not because she is trying to brand herself strategically, but because she genuinely belongs to multiple places at once. For a sport that has been working hard to grow its global audience, that kind of presence is something money and marketing departments cannot manufacture. As the season continues past Madrid, the question shifts from who is Alex Eala to what can Alex Eala become. And that is a far more interesting question, because the answer is not settled yet. The blueprint is visible, the qualities are present, the mentality is there. What remains is the accumulation: more matches, more pressure, more moments where everything tightens and the right decision has to come from instinct rather than conscious thought. Those moments will come, and based on everything she showed in Madrid, not just in the match but in the moment after it, there is genuine reason to believe that when they do, she will not shrink from them. Madrid will be remembered not as the tournament where she lost to Mertens, but as the tournament where a stadium full of strangers became fans in real time, where a loss became an introduction, where 3 languages and 1 microphone created a moment that stayed with people long after the courts were empty. That kind of moment does not come from calculation, it comes from character. And character, once revealed, does not disappear, it compounds. Match after match, court after court, language after language, Alex Eala is building something, and the most compelling thing about it is that the building has barely even started.